Welcome, listeners. We have Kristen Kavanaugh with us today, and I'm super excited. She has a new book out, Courage Over Fear, that she has written, co-authored with her former teammate at Tesla, and just so excited for her to share her story and these amazing tools. We need more people leading with courage, certainly right now. I've been saying the mantra I've been saying for like the last, I don't know, 9 months, however long it's been, is like, courage over cowardice. That's what we need. And so this book
There you
absolutely
go.
speaks to it. Kristen, welcome. I'm so excited for you to be here. Tell us your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It really is exciting to finally get a chance to talk about this. As you know, this process can be long, and we tried to get it out as quickly as possible because we felt the need. But I'm glad it's finally out. So I'm from a small town in Ohio. Grew up as a kid whose parents never went to college, and so it was kind of made known to me very early that I was going to take a different path. And so I played sports all through high school. And so that was kind of my ticket out of small town, Midwest USA. And so ended up going to the Naval Academy. That was my first and only choice. I didn't know much about the academy until I applied to go there, but there was just something about the mission and serving a greater purpose and being around people, who were of service. And so decided to go there. And in my sophomore year, I realized that I was a lesbian. And so during that time, I was serving under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which I didn't know anything about when I started. And so you can imagine the position that I found myself in. But I was really bought in, and also couldn't imagine going back home and telling my parents that I gave up an opportunity of a lifetime. So continued at the academy. 9/11 happened early into my senior year. And so then it was apparent that I was going to war after graduation. And so at that point, everything took a backseat. And so it was all about what I could do to be the best Marine officer, get prepared, and serve my country for what I signed up to do. So commissioned to the Marine Corps, deployed to Iraq in 2004. Those were some of those moments that matter. We talked about that in the book. There are these moments that really shine some light into meaning making moments. And so, at a couple experiences there where it was just very obvious that uh, I was serving my country but couldn't be my authentic self,
Mhm.
and just the dissonance that that causes between value sets in your environment. And so did that for my entire uh, obligation, and then got out, had no idea what I wanted to do. So took some random jobs. And then I happened to be working for the San Diego Chargers, selling football tickets. And I called
Wow.
in to, yeah. I'm literally like all over the place. I called in to a former ticket holder. She worked at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego. And we started talking. She's like, "Kid, what are you doing?" I was like, "I don't know. I don't know." She's like, "You're an academy grad. You're a Marine officer. Like, why are you selling football tickets?" And I said, "Well, I really want to be a therapist and I don't know how to do that." And she said, "Well, I'm in this program at the University of Southern California. It's a social work program. They have a military track to work with veterans and military families. Social work is kind of like being a therapist. You should check it out." And so next thing I knew, I was applying to USC and then going to grad school. And so it really was this phone call that changed my life. And it just happened to be a
Mhm.
name on a sheet of paper that was handed to me. And so I really appreciate that moment. So went through USC, had a great experience. It was really the first time I felt like I was out and authentic and talking about the things I cared about. And then took a couple consulting gigs and saw a job description at Tesla. And it was an HR manager job, but it was talking all about the culture and like working with leaders. And so I went to a job fair and took the job description and I said, "I want to do this. And it sounds like a social worker inside a company. I want to do this." And the guy looked at me and he's like, "Tesla is a male dominated company." And I was like, "I'm a Marine," and just stared at me. And he was like, "Oh, okay. Oh, sure." And so found myself interviewing with the hiring manager who was an Air Force officer, his manager who was a Naval Academy graduate and a naval officer. And so again, like the stars were kind of aligning. They gave me a shot. And so I went, immediately was asked to be an HR manager and as you do when you go into corporations like that, and do leadership development inside the factories. And so immediately kind of started to establish what leadership should and could look like. We had nothing to that point. We had a video of Elon saying some things. And so I had to take that and like interpret what that meant into how we were going to lead and take things from social work and from my past, kind of build that in. But my heart was always in DEI. Like that's what I really clung on to from my time in the Marine Corps and how I was treated and the culture and the way policies can kind of come together. And then time it's social work. And so we hired a DEI leader in 2018, and I was first on her calendar. I said, "Look, I want to come do this work." And so she was building out her team. She was able to bring me on, and we started building out an organization and brought in training, and we brought in speakers. And so Elon wanted to get involved. And so we really, I know that is very surprising for a lot of people. And so we
Mhm.
were doing some good work, like foundationally. She decided to leave. She went to Nike. I don't blame her. It's a great gig. And then I leaded up into her role. And so continued to build out the team, the organization. 2020 happened, the pandemic happened. And so things really ramped up quickly. But the team ramped up quickly too. And so I think we did a good job of being authentic to where we were in Tesla's journey and what we could and couldn't do. Um, and then things started to take a turn after the pandemic, and Elon's tweets changed, as we all know now. And I talk about one in the book, the pronouns tweet, which is like the infamous one, where he I don't even remember the exact words. I don't even want to repeat it. But it was basically saying that like pronouns don't matter. And so as a gay woman to hear my CEO say something like that so publicly, you can imagine like the cringe, but also just the deep pain that that caused, because I knew what that meant for our transgender employees, and it could be, life and death for them. And so that was kind of the start of the unraveling of DEI at the company, and really that dissonance of me coming to terms with everything I believed in and what I was there to work on and the employees I was there to serve, and a CEO who was the antithesis of all of those things.
Mhm.
And so that came to a head in 2022, and it was one of the hardest decisions I ever made to leave. I love the company, the mission, the employees, the job is addicting, to try and be there and help. But sometimes the most important and impactful thing you can do is leave. And so I did that, started my own company, and now here we are with a book 3 years later, and I'm really, really excited about it.
That's so cool. Wow, what a story. And like where my mind went, I mean, yeah, all the drama. And I love how candid you are about your experiences at Tesla, because I know people are very curious to like see behind the curtain. So you're
Mhm.
very generous with that. But also like your story arc, it feels like this small town in Ohio kid, which I grew up in Ohio too, the Columbus, so not a small town,
Yes.
but like I
Yeah,
know what you're talking about. And, feel underestimated, have to, prove yourself. I mean, you're a Marine, and then find yourself kind of in this middle space and get this amazing magical moment where someone points you in the right direction.
that's
And then
right.
all those transferable skills that I'm sure you learned as a Marine show up in you leading the DEI team.
Absolutely.
Um, it's just a really cool career story. I love these pivot points that people have, pun intended.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but Kristen, tell me more about starting the business focused and why the book? So courage over fear. Like,
Mhm.
what was the inspiration? Well, I mean, it sounds like there was a lot of inspiration points for it, but like, what got like the gumption? Like, I'm going to hang my own shingle. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to
Yeah.
write this book.
Yeah. So after I left Tesla, obviously I needed a lot of downtime and detoxing, but I couldn't get the thought out of my head of like, what just happened? Like what
Mhm.
was that? What did I even do for 6 years? And so Mike and I kept talking about it, and I would go on these walks, by my kids' school, and just try to make some sense, and some meaning out of the entire experience. And so that's why the book starts with what just happened, because that was a question that kept coming up. And so we kept coming back to agency and agency and agency. What was it about agency and the times that we had it? And then the times that we didn't have it. And like, why was that? Why were there times where we felt like we couldn't make certain decisions, or say certain things? And that really came down to courage. And so we named the company the Agency Initiative
Mhm.
because the goal was to kind of bring forth and bring light to people's agency and help them recognize that everybody can make decisions. Like, you always have a decision, even if the decision is to do nothing, you always have the ability to make a decision. What we're hoping is that people make intentional decisions based on those values.
Mm,
The courage piece came later, right? Like, it was that
mm,
understanding of like the real driver of all of this is, do you have the courage to be authentic? Do you have the courage to recognize how your values and your decisions are intersecting and make good choices? And then do you have the decision to go back and reflect and learn and grow on those
mhm.
decisions? And so that's really where the agency loop comes in too. So it was, you know, really dissecting what happened to us at Tesla, deciding to build a business on that to help people, one, not feel so alone and recognize that there are a lot of managers that are feeling the same way that we were feeling, and give some perspective from the middle of the organization, right? Like, I'm tired of CEOs telling us how managers are supposed to lead. Like, it's just not based in reality. And so
Mm,
we wanted something that felt like it was based in reality, and to really, just be genuine and authentic with leaders and give them something that they could use.
yeah.
And Courage
You
Over
meant,
Fear wasn't the title of the book.
oh, really?
This is not the book that we set out to write. We were writing the agency loop. That's what it was called the entire time. And then Elon got involved in politics, and he became more and more prominent on the scene, and everything was going on with government employees. And so we rewrote the book three times over because we were trying to keep up with the broader context that was going on. And so by the time we got to the end, it's like, well, we can't call it the agency loop. That doesn't feel right anymore. And so we came out with Courage Over Fear and made sure that we
Mm.
were talking about like the real drivers of what's going on right now.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I mean, I was instantly compelled to that title and the agency loop. I understand because so much of it is about that tool, but what's going to make someone pick it up off the shelf? And we're at a really trying time where we need people to be more courageous and they
Yes.
need tools to help. One of my favorite tools from the book was just the 5% more courageous approach. Like we can all choose to be a little bit more courageous. You mentioned agency, so I wonder, Kristen, one, can you help us understand the agency loop model for listeners that haven't read the book yet? And then two, like the 5% approach, I'd love to hear more about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So the model has three phases. It is authenticity. So how can you show up and understand, who you are and what your value set is? Then there's agency. And so agency is really about making intentional decisions and being decisive. And a lot of times people feel helpless, like they don't have any control, but what you always have is agency. You always have the ability to make a decision. And then the final phase is the growth phase. And I think this is where people get tripped up. We make decisions all the time, but how often do we look back at those decisions and one, appreciate them for what they were, good, bad, indifferent, and then grow from them and be willing to change, based on what we learn from those decisions. And so we talk about it in terms of a loop because the cycle doesn't end with growth. So you're
Hmm.
learning something else about yourself and your values. That's going to help you be even closer to your authentic self. And so it is a self-perpetuating cycle of making decisions. What did I learn? Who does that make me? I'm making more decisions. What do I learn? Who does that make me? Um, the whole thing is fueled by courage because it takes courage to look at who you are, it takes courage to make certain decisions, and it takes courage to learn and grow. And so the goal is over time, as courage builds, the loop gets smaller and smaller because you're running it constantly and more aware, that you're in the loop and that you're always constantly learning and growing. And so there's a graphic in the book, and we call it the agency, or the agency tornado, because it kind of looks like a tornado like spiraling down. And so that's kind of the inside joke with it. But really, that's what you want. You want your courage to build and build over time and get that loop as small as possible.
Hmm.
The 5% piece is, that can seem very daunting to have courage right now, especially in times like this when there's so much going on. And so we wanted to break it down into little tiny small steps. And it doesn't have to be like Marine Corps courage. We talk about that in the book too. Like, yeah, like that's what you think of, like the heroics. But it can be something as small as like deciding what shoes you're going to wear that make you feel more authentic. Where it,
Hmm.
where it kind of came up for us, I gave a speech at USC back in 23. And so I was about to go on stage and I went to put my heels on. And the speaker who was before me, she said, "Girl, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm short, like I'm wearing heels." And she said, "First of all, no, those shoes are fire. Like, don't take those off. But second of
Oh,
all, I heard what your speech is about, and you can't go out there wearing heels if that's not you." She's like, "People need to see you in those sneakers, and you wear those sneakers." And I was like,
oh,
"Okay." And so I told that story like impromptu on the stage. And it's like, that's the little stuff like that just
yeah.
makes you feel a little bit more like you, and to have the courage to do it. I haven't worn heels since. It's been like so, so liberating.
Your
But it
body's
really
thanking
is.
you for that.
Yeah, right, right. But it really is like there's always something little we can do every day. And how do you start to um, recognize those moments and then have the courage to kind of take them when they come at you?
Oh, that is such a great example of the 5% more courage approach. Because at first when you said shoes, I was like, really? But then your example, it's like, oh my gosh, I've been that person that's worn
Mhm.
shoes that were inauthentic to me. And the
Mhm.
whole time, I mean, it's so important how you're grounded on the
That's right.
earth and that affects how you feel. So it's actually a much bigger deal.
That's
And
right.
women's shoes, we could go on and on about,
That's
but
right.
like,
That's
I've
right.
sprained my ankle so many times. It's like, no,
Totally.
heels will not work.
When I was consulting, we worked in a building where we would take the stairs often, and my business partner and I he would run up the stairs, and I'm like trying, and he's like, "Why can't you catch up?" I'm like, "Look at what I'm wearing. Like
Yeah.
this is your fault, first of all."
Yeah.
But and I did that for years, and so to have that moment of liberation to say, you know what, this is the authentic me, and some sneakers has really been a good little step.
Such a great example. I mean, how many times that we're in a male-dominated world? I mean, your whole career has been in male-dominated spaces. Mine was too. And it's like they just don't see that they're swimming in the water that's like totally built for them. Like things are so
No.
easy. Like, why would it be hard for you until you like perspective take, like, oh yeah, her clothing, her shoes, like these other invisible forces.
Right,
Um,
right.
you, you don't see it until you see it, and then
Yeah,
hopefully you don't unsee it.
that's right.
Um,
That's right.
you talked about the tornado, and I'm actually selfishly I'm teaching a decision making class at a business school here, Indiana University, and we talk a lot about context for decision making and decision fatigue. And as you're talking about the tornado, I was like, oh, I'm starting to get like decision fatigue thinking about
Yep,
that thing spiraling around.
yep,
I'm just curious, like, what thoughts you have. I think the words you and Mike use in the book are decision calculus. Like, I'd
yes.
love for you just to like sh shed some light on that.
Yeah, I mean, where this kind of came about. So, we had some folks, some former colleagues at Tesla, take a look at the first draft, and one person that I respect dearly was like, "Kristen, you're going to get people fired or killed. Like, you can't just tell people to go like quit their job or rail on their boss or say everything." And we're like, okay, right. Like there has to be some guardrails around how we're making those decisions,
Mhm.
and some safety that we put in place. And so we call it the decision calculus. And so it really is looking at risk. It's looking at some of your privilege factors. And it's looking at like what the outcome is that you're trying to achieve. And so everybody's calculus is going to be different. When I was at Tesla, like the calculus said that I could quit my job and my family would be okay and we would still be able to have a house and eat. That's not the case for everybody.
Yeah.
Some people have to work a lot more than they should to feed their families or to put a roof over their heads, but that's the reality that they're living in, right?
Hmm.
And so we ask people like really know what your calculus is. Like everybody's equation is going to be different, and so based
Yeah.
on like whatever factors are important to you, um, and based on, again, like that privilege, like Mike can say a lot of things that I can't say, he can do a lot of things. And so that goes into the calculus. I think the other thing is sometimes people's calculus afford them the opportunity to do more, to have more courage. And so that's okay. we expect those people to do the courageous thing. And that's what I'm not seeing enough of right now. People who could risk a little bit more that aren't doing enough. And sometimes the calculus says that you aren't safe and you can't do anything about it. That's okay. Like, let the people who can have the courage right now, let them have and do, and let's push them to do more. And when you're in a position where your calculus says that you can do more, and then the expectation is like, come on, we got you. We're ready to bring you into the team. But we don't want people to feel like if they aren't doing the most courageous thing today, then they're not helping the cause. It's not everybody's, burden to bear right now, but there are people that should bear a lot of the burden. And that's what I was seeing at Tesla, right? Like there were people who were making a lot more money than I was making that were going along with decisions that just didn't make any sense, or they were allowing behavior to happen that didn't make any sense to me. It's like, you're afraid to stand up to him.
Mhm. Right.
You can literally be set and your kids are set and their kids are set, but you won't say anything and stand up to them. And those people eventually left or were
Yeah.
asked to leave on their own. And so, like, you can walk away with your values intact and your money
Yeah.
intact, or you can do the cowardly thing and get along to go along, and it's still going to come back and bite you.
Yeah, it's gonna
And
cost
so,
you.
yeah, it's going to cost you anyway. And so, I was kind of good example. I went to the Naval Academy, and so the Naval Academy had banned or at least pulled like 400 books off the shelf a couple months ago to be in compliance with Trump's executive order around DEI. And so they pulled To Kill a Mockingbird. They did not pull Mein Kampf. And so I'm looking at the superintendent, the first female superintendent the Naval Academy has ever had. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how are you letting this happen
Yeah.
on your watch? You know what this is, and you have fought for 40 years to get to where you are. How can you let this happen? And she's not the superintendent of the Naval Academy anymore, but she is the superintendent that let the book ban happen. And so, I think we have to have higher expectations for people who have the privilege to take a stand right now. That's only going to give people who can take a little bit less of a stand, like give them more courage to kind of follow in their footsteps.
Yeah. I know that's the question I've been asking myself since the election is like, where did the courage go? Like, why aren't people standing up to this? Because I heard you say all these things were
That's right.
important to you and your values, and
That's
you're
right.
just kind of willing to put it on the shelf. And I don't know if it's just like the short-term fear and the short-term scarcity that I hope we find a way through. But that's the key. People with power, people with privilege, people that can do that decision calculus more easily should be bearing the brunt of this.
They have to.
And
They have
I
to.
know, Kristen, I find this with my books, and I know you found this with your book too. Like we have women and people of color and LGBTQ plus folks and neurodivergent, disability folks with us. And it's like, but we really need that dominant group identity.
Yes.
And
Yes.
having co-authored a book with a white man, I'm just curious, like, where do you see like the conversations he can have versus the conversations you can have? Because you have a lot of intersectional identities.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, that's a great question. And one of the reasons that we not only decided to write the book, but have the business together, because we both recognize those two things. Like, I am constantly pulling him into rooms where he is the only. And so that's a new experience for him. But what he's doing is learning and growing from what that's like, from like our entire lived experience, right? Like he is getting that like a fire hose. So then he can take that and say, look, now I've had these experiences. I know what it's like to be the only white person in a room. Like, and here's what that looked like, and here's how that felt for me. And now I see how this is showing up for other people when they're in the room with us. And so I think what I appreciate about him most, he's willing to say that. Like he said it last night, and I watched people's faces like, oh,
Yeah. We
okay,
don't
like
say
he's
these
gonna do
things.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna do it. But to that point, like we do need more of the demographics in the rooms to have the conversations. And I specifically white males. Like we in the book, we had two composite characters that we made up. and there's stories behind them. But it's Taylor and Justin. I'm a huge Swiftie, and so we were going to get rid of the name Taylor and make it more inclusive, but then like we couldn't. So, but
Well, I think it's
Justin,
gender neutral too, right? Like it's not
yeah,
binary. Yeah,
yeah. But I'm a Swiftie. Like that's it was the
gotcha.
joke,
Yeah.
it was the joke, and then we couldn't
Authenticity,
change.
Kristen.
Right, I'm owning it. But Justin is the other character, and Justin is this like 20-year-old white male rock star, always been like the star of every team, and he's just looking at what the CEO is doing and is doing that. Because that's working for him. So that's gonna work for Justin. And it works until it doesn't. And that's what we saw at Tesla a lot. Like you have all of these young men who are incredibly smart and good people, but they're watching somebody and emulating somebody who is not behaving in a way that is conducive to good
Mhm.
leadership and courageous leadership. And so we call that accidental authoritarianism, right? Like I'm just doing what this guy's doing, but what this guy's doing is like being an authoritarian. And so we think that we can unwind that for people when they recognize that there's another way. There are other examples that we can follow. And so Justin really is that embodiment of somebody who just gets caught up in the system, but can really find a different way to lead when they're exposed to something different.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what you're talking about with like the cognitive dissonance. When you're in dissonance with your values,
Hmm.
you can comply in the short term, but at some point, like there's this
Yes.
breaking point inside your body where you're like,
Yes.
this doesn't feel right to me.
Yes.
It really stuck out when I read that in the book. It was like every time I chose to leave a company, like it was like I was getting sick before going to work. And like my body was
Yes.
like trying to tell me
Yes.
something that my brain
Yes.
wasn't like wrapping itself around until
Yes.
you get
Yes.
physically ill.
Yeah.
And when you don't know your values, and I love how Brene Brown's new book is like two values, like get really crystal clear and like just a couple, not this whole basket of stuff because you're not going to remember
Hmm.
everything. When you get really clear on it, it becomes really clear what type of organization you should work for, like what type of
Right.
like you were brought into like love social work and like how that parlayed to DEI. It makes sense with your values. I've gotten really crystal clear in mine, and mine are justice and fairness. Imagine I've had some mental health problems this
Hmm.
year. But just
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
the world is
Yep.
not aligned with those two things
Yes.
right now, but it will be
Yes.
someday.
Yes.
So I think it's just that back to that authenticity piece, making decisions aligned with your values and that tornado reinforcing it.
Yes.
Um, but I'm just curious, like when you knew it was time to leave Tesla and you had that dissonance feeling, like what did that, like how did that manifest for you? Like what guidance would you have
Yeah.
for somebody that's maybe feeling that?
Yeah, it was wild and very clear now looking back on it. And so the moment that mattered that I now can see it. So it was Christmas of 21, and I asked for one of the cardio mobile machines, like the EKG readers that you can use on your phone, because I thought I was having heart attacks. And so I was like, I need to make sure I'm not having a heart attack so I can keep working. And so I was 42 years old, 41 years old,
Mm,
asking for an EKG as a Christmas present to make sure I wasn't going to crash out at work. That is wild.
mhm,
Nobody should work themselves into a heart attack. Turns out I wasn't having a heart attack, I was having panic attacks. And
mhm.
so, but it was literally my body
Yep.
telling me the red lights were just flashing. And so I had to listen to that. And, my body had come to terms with it, but my brain had to get there. And so it took another 6 months for me to actually keep up and say, all right, this is the decision I'm going to make. And so I walked out and the attacks stopped immediately. I haven't had one since. And so that was when I knew it was like, oh, like stress will kill you. They say that, but like it will literally kill you. And so, I think you have to listen to your body. And if you're getting sick, if you're having palpitations, if like you feel it in your gut that you don't want to go to work, listen to that. It means something. It may take you some time to unravel what that something is, but it's not something that you can ignore.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. I can relate to that. I developed AFib through a lot of the last roller coaster ride over the last few years. And I know it
Mhm.
was like my body and the stress and
That's right.
similar. early 40s. Like, what are we doing
What
here?
are we doing? What are we doing? It
Not
sounds like you have
okay.
kids. I have kids. Like I can't crash out. I've got an 8-year-old. Like
Right.
it's not
Yeah.
worth it.
No, I think about that all the time. My 11 and 5-year-old and 22-year-old too. It's like this is not an option. Like I got to find a way through this. Like they've got to inherit a better world.
That's right.
And they will. We need more courage over fear though, Kristen.
That's what I think. That's what I think.
Tell our listeners how can they get the book, follow your work?
Yeah, yeah. So you can get it on Amazon. It's easy. People got it overnight, so that was awesome. We had books in hand yesterday. So Amazon's the easiest way. You can check out courageoverfearbook.com. That's where you can find us directly. There's more information about me, Mike, the book. You can check out the agency initiative to look at the work that we're doing with corporations and organizations. I think that's the biggest thing, that we're trying to figure out. How do we get this to the masses, right? We think it's through the workplace, but any ideas that people have about how we get the message out, it's more than a book. Like I actually don't care if people buy the book. What I want is like the movement, right? Like how do we build a movement around courage and a community around
Mhm.
courage? And we think it's having discussions and talks like this very openly and candidly and really checking in on how people are doing. And so we would love to bring those conversations to the masses.
I love that. I love that. Well, we need your work now more than ever. And I'm thankful for you and Mike leading the charge on this. It's really important.
Thank you.